everybody, to today's Paige, the podcast. I'm your host, Paige Kornblue, and today we are packing our bags. We're packing our backpacks, perhaps our trunks, and we are heading to summer camp. We're talking camp. This episode is really geared to the parents out there, grandparents, caretakers, caregivers, those of you already planning to send your child or children to camp, and perhaps those of you considering sending your child to camp. This one's for you. We're going to discuss day camp, sleepaway camp, the benefits of it all, the emotion, the adjustments, safety protocols to look for in a camp, COVID, and opportunities perhaps for those who think they can't afford it, but there's some ways that you can. So we're going to go over it all. Joining me to dive in, we have Tom Rosenberg. He's the president and CEO of the American Camp Association. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Paige. Thanks for having me.
So honored to have you here. And Melissa Fitzgerald, the co-owner and co-director of Camp Highlander in the beautiful North Carolina mountains. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Paige. Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure to connect with both of you. Melissa, as you know, I am a former camper at Camp Highlander. So that camp there in the mountains in the woods is near and dear to my heart, but truly all camps are. And whether we're talking day camps, we're talking sleepaway camps, it's such an important part of children's lives if you can make it work in your family. So let's start with the big question, right? Why camp? Tom, because this is your day in and day out, why don't you start with this one?
Sure. That's today, here we are in the pandemic, year two of pandemic and continuing. Camp could not be more educationally and developmentally essential for every single boy and girl across our country. We're talking about, 74, 76 million school-age children. All of them need the social and emotional learning competencies that camp has to offer. They need the 21st century learning skills that it has to offer. And I would say most of all, every parent would agree, our kids today need greater emotional resilience and confidence and self-esteem. All of the sheltering, let's say, that many kids have had to endure has caused a great deal of trauma, has stunted their development, and they need opportunities to learn outside more experientially and kinetically. And this is essential now more than ever. In order to prepare to learn for school, kids need the experiences of programs like camp so that they can develop the social and emotional learning competencies that allow them to succeed in the classroom. One leads to the other, and research shows that.
And there's only so much, at school. Thankfully, a lot of our schools are starting to incorporate a lot of the SEL, the social emotional learning. And I think it's catching on throughout our country. But camp's been doing this for years, right? And specifically some sleepaway camps when you really can kind of get to know the child and it's not pick up, drop off, the day-to-day.
Immersive experiential learning. It teaches kids about community building. It teaches them how to be an everyday learner, how to inspires curiosity around lots of things. They develop relationship skills. They appreciate diverse thinking. They learn to get to be friends with people who think differently than they do, who are more diverse or different than they are. And so camp is a learning laboratory every single day. It's really an outdoor classroom, right? We know from 2 summers now of operating overnight and day camps in COVID that we can do this safely and that it's very important for kids educationally, developmentally. So, kids need a bit of distance from their parents once they get to be a certain age to have a measure of that independence that allows them to try new things, to take positive risks, to even make mistakes. Because I know as a dad myself, I'm often keeping my son from, oh, don't do that, you'll blank, right? And so we need our kids to have the opportunity to try new things, to make mistakes, to learn from those mistakes and try again. That's how they build emotional resilience. And we want them to be inspired, to try, to innovate, to think about who they are, who they want to be, and all that happens, as you say, in the immersive overnight camp experience, but also in many day camps as well. And we're trying. The truth is, Paige and Melissa, is that we really need to get all of our kids to camp, and I'll say more about that later.
Okay. All right. Well, Melissa, what would you say some of the major benefits to camp are in your world?
Well, Paige, there are so many, and Tom has definitely covered a broad view of all of that and how important camp is for every child. And I love that the American Camp Association is committed to every child having the opportunity to experience camp, because there are so many tremendous benefits that I have seen over my 20 years as a camp director, working with families, working with children, and hearing story after story about how lives are changed in a 1, 2, 3 week summer camp experience, through the positive role models that are in their lives and pouring into them, through the programming that builds things like resilience and confidence and self-esteem. Camp provides a place for kids to not only get positive memories and wonderful role models and amazing new friendships, but it also provides a place for personal growth that kids don't even know is happening. They don't even realize that they're learning and growing the way that Tom talked about. It's not school, it is camp, and it is fun, but we're very intentional about the way that we program, because we care more about the inside of a child than the outside. We want them to learn to roll a kayak, but it's not rolling the kayak that actually is what matters. It's what rolling a kayak gives a kid, how they feel more confident, how they walk a little taller, like, I did this and it was hard and I failed over and over and over again, but I learned how to overcome that failure. And those experiences that kids have at summer camp prepare them for the future when they have hard things happen. We call it life skills at Highlander. We are building kids by giving them those skills that they need to face harder challenges later on. They'll remember back when they were 12 years old and how hard it was, and they kept pushing and they didn't give up and they believed in themselves and they listened to the positive voices of people around them who encouraged them to be their best and to achieve their goals. So I believe that the summer camp experience is essential for every camper. As a parent, I have sent my children to camp for many years now. And one of the things that I love most about summer camp is the ability to disconnect from the rest of the world, from technology, from outside distractions that kids face. And today, I believe our children have way more pressure than I ever had as a child growing up because of social media and technology. And while it is wonderful and it provides ways for us to connect today and for school to continue when my kids have snow day like they do today, there are wonderful benefits, but there are pressures that our children face in social media of performing, of looking a certain way, of being a certain way, of acting a certain way, of talking a certain way. And they come to camp and they realize they don't have to prove themselves. Like, here at camp, everybody's on the same page. You're all a camper, here to have fun, to grow and learn together, and to make the most of the experience. And it doesn't matter what your mom does or where you came from or your neighborhood or how big your house is or whether you're wearing the latest, greatest pair of shoes. You just get to be a kid. And that is a wonderful gift that parents can give their children, just the gift to be a kid. I love the simple life of camp, and I love that kids have an opportunity to slow down and to appreciate true relationship, to learn communication skills, to learn about cooperation and compromise, and realize that the world is bigger than their own life.
Beautiful, Melissa. Tom, you have such a network of camps under your belt, under your umbrella at the association. How do you encourage that pull away from the technology within all of the camps?
I think the vast majority of camps out there, day camps and overnight camps, really prohibit personal technology devices from coming to camp. They value camp is one of the camp directors understand how important it is that camp is one of the last places in a young person's life when they are living immersively in an environment that's completely undistracted by technology, and it's 100% human skills and human connected. So I think that's really important. It's an expanded learning environment where kids are taking the things they learn in school and they're applying them to their activities at camp and their learning and exploration at camp. But most importantly, it's 100%, heart. They're acting with their heart, they're acting with their mind, they're looking each other in the eye, smiling, feeling emotions. This is really important when we talk about mental health, our kids' mental health. Right now, we're in the middle of a mental health crisis, which actually was happening long before the pandemic, and the pandemic has exacerbated it. Terrible data, lots of terrible trends around children and youth who have increased anxiety, depression, and worse. And so camp is a place where kids, as Melissa said, slow down and are encouraged to live more intentionally and more simply, but maybe not, but even more complexly from a human perspective. They're going to lean in on their human skills 200%. So we really value that as camp professionals across the United States. I think that it's one of the things that makes camp learning different from school and other programs like that. Um, it you know this generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha behind them, are going to grow up into this new economy that World Economic Forum and other education futurists are calling a human skills centered economy. The jobs in the future when they grow up are going to be very much the best jobs will be focused on human skills. And you have to ask yourself, going into the pandemic, our kids were there's a lot of good Pew studies and things like that out there that articulate how before the pandemic, teenagers were very focused on making their friends digitally online. And there's some great studies over there at Pew about this. They're saying that only like 1/5 of all the friends that they make online were converting to an in-person relationship. And so there was a lot of social psychologists asking the question, how is this generation going to grow up with well-developed human skills that will prepare them for their future to lead to I mean, essentially, this is a generation of inventors and design thinkers and creatives, right? But we have to teach them how to work together to do that. So camp is a place that inspires all of those mindsets, inspires all those skills. And it really, I mean, today, I mean, how many months have we all been with our kids? Pretty much, right, in this disrupted 2 years of school that have been disrupted and difficult and challenging for our kids and for our families. So having an opportunity to go to camp where you have a measure of independence from your parents, and yes, our codependent parents, including myself, have a measure of independence from their children, right? So they can breathe and their kids get to be themselves. Camp just really offers them an opportunity to grow and develop in ways that they haven't had a chance in quite some time. It's worth pausing and just remembering that that before the pandemic, fifth graders were in elementary school, and now all of a sudden they're in seventh grade or eighth grade, or heading towards eighth grade next year, in the depths of middle school. Or you have seventh graders and eighth graders who are now like in high school and being pushed towards college. And I think our kids are developmentally delayed as a result of this pandemic. So we need to infuse in them all of the opportunities we possibly can where they can learn to build their either human skills and test them, make mistakes, as Melissa said, and grow from that. This is what it's all about. And I was reading an article today about how some educators are calling for like a 300-day school year, expand the school year to help our kids overcome the trauma from this or the learning delays from this pandemic. And I think that's a miss, because I think kids learn, summer has always been an essential part of a child's year-long learning landscape. We just think the kids are learning differently in summer. They're learning kinetically, they're learning experientially, and but they're absolutely learning. And every single child in our country deserves summer learning programs like camp. And one last thing, and then I'll pause. In January 2020, just before the pandemic took hold, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics issued a report, a report about the incredible widening gap that has been developing between kids who have summer learning experiences and kids who do not. And this consensus report, it's like 300 plus pages, this by the National Academies, which is, that's what they do. They create these amazing consensus reports around big, hard problems in our society. And it articulated the terribly detrimental deficits that kids who don't have summer learning programs experience in their growth and development that are life-lasting. So we knew before the pandemic that this was a problem, but now we know that it's been exacerbated terribly, and we have to do something about it. So everyone needs camp, and the reality is we need more capacity in the field of camp to serve all of these deserving children.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother project for us, right?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes. Well, let's transition from this big picture to helping folks get their kids there, right? So I want to start with kind of age recommendations. Sometimes parents need that little push, especially to begin, and then it's probably easier each summer after that. But what are Melissa, what age do you start at Camp Highlander for your little ones?
We start at age 6, and we believe that a camper that has already been away to kindergarten is a lot more prepared for the overnight experience and establish some of those routines of school and independence and taking care of themselves. And so, however, with the pandemic, there are a lot of kids who haven't been to kindergarten. They've done virtual kindergarten, but there is still that discipline of school that they've had, and we believe that they're more prepared. A lot of parents aren't ready to send their 6-year-old, and we believe at Highlander in partnering with parents to determine whether your child is ready for camp. It really is an individual thing based on how your child feels about camp, how you feel about camp, how you're communicating about the camp experience at home. And so our camper age is age 6 to 16. And we have campers in all of those ages. And I love that kids come back year after year and grow more and continue those friendships and see camp as more than just a summer camp experience. They call Highlander home. And I know that for many other summer camps as well, that it gets into your life and it becomes a part of your routine. I have families who plan their whole summer around the summer camp dates and are already calling me in the beginning of 2022 saying, do you have your dates for 23? We're trying to book a trip. We're hoping COVID's going to be better. And I love that camp is a priority in our families' lives, and they know that their children need that. But the age decision is something that the parents have to be comfortable with, because if the camper is feeling like their mom doesn't know if they can go to camp or they're not quite ready, then it makes it harder for them to have the confidence to feel ready if mom and dad are doubting that. So we have, individual conversations with every family to talk about that. And we have, some kids that come at 6 that could run the whole program, they're after my job, and I love that. And then other ones at 6 who need a little more encouragement. And then we have some 13-year-olds who struggle with homesickness as well. And they're 13, and you would think that they could do that. But being away from home and going through those experiences at camp without mom and dad there is part of the whole story that helps them build confidence and helps them build that resilience to say, I did this on my own. Mom and dad didn't have to rescue me. I'm proud of myself because I did it. And usually by the end of the session, they're ready to come back again. But that adjustment is always something that is very dependent on the age of the child. And the parents really know best. My child's going to do well at 13, or my child's going to do great at 6, or vice versa.
And Tom, I'm sure you have something to add there in terms of age for
Well,
camp. There, you know, you do a day and overnight.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, every child is different. I think a lot of our kids right now, having, been isolated in some respects for quite a while last year, maybe the kids might be a little bit out of sorts, and it might be that they might want a shorter session that first time. But I agree with Melissa. Every child's unique. Work with your camp directors to try to understand whether your camp is a particularly good, what kind of camp your children are interested in going to. I think you can start talking about the concept of camp long before you actually have to plan to send them. Go out and visit camps if you can, or go online and look at different ones. We always recommend American Camp Association accredited camps. It shows that camp directors have voluntarily taken steps to find camp, taken steps to ensure that their camp meets the foundational standards around health and risk management and safety. And so it's really important to ask that question. But I think that, first children in the family very often are, don't have anyone to follow, right? And so that maybe that they might go later in their childhood than maybe the third child in the family or the second child in the family. I think that the other thing we can talk about is just that sometimes when not everybody in the family even understands what camp is, going to an experience like family camp together as a family, you can show your children the power of camp through that experience. So that's another idea. Day camp, just talking about day camp for a second, I just want to say that day camps can start as young as like 3 and 4. For their first time campers. And day camp's a wonderful way for a child to develop some independence away from mom and dad on a daily basis, having a really robust program and a schedule from like 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. And that can then lead later to an overnight camp experience. So, and then hopefully family camp experiences maybe also. So there's a lot to think about with all this, but
think about and consider, and some baby steps if you want, like the family camp. Melissa, I know you do a family camp and a mother-daughter camp and a father-son camp. So there's different options to kind of weave in.
Yeah, I echo what Tom said about, doing the research and talking to camps and other camp directors. My husband and I are just passionate enthusiasts about camp. And when we used to go on the road and travel and recruit and be in people's homes, the first thing I would say to parents and to anyone listening now is just great job for listening and learning about camp. Great job for seeing if this is something for your child, and congratulations for, investing in your child, because a summer camp experience is an investment. Now, not every camp is for every child. Not every child is going to be successful at overnight camp, but they may just thrive at day camp. And not every child is going to be successful at an outdoor wilderness camp, but would love a drama theater camp. And there are tons of camps and opportunities out there. And so Brian and I always say, just find a camp. It doesn't have to be Highlander, it doesn't have to be your local camp. It doesn't have to be anything nearby, but find a camp, because we believe so much in that experience. But we do have lots of families who choose to come to family camp or to father-son or to mother-daughter weekend to kind of introduce the camp experience to their children. This has just excellent benefits for the family. One, because we get to build a relationship with that family. They get to know our staff, the caliber of staff that we hire, our safety protocols. They get to see those things in action, and it provides so much peace for parents when they think about sending their child away to go to that same camp and say, well, I remember what it was like in the dining hall and when everyone got up to sing and dance. And, my child's telling me about, he got to the top of the climbing wall and rang the bell. And I remember trying that and being scared to death and kind of embarrassed that my kids saw me being scared. But those experiences that parents build with their kids help give kids the confidence to go to camp alone, and they feel connected to their children. I know as a parent, and to all of today's parents, we love to be involved in our kids' lives. We love to volunteer and participate and coach teams or, lead Girl Scout troops, whatever it is, we want to be a part of it. And these family experiences allow you to really feel connected to the camp experience, confident about what the camp is doing and the programs that they have and those safety standards. And so we love that families participate and get involved. And we believe that it's a partnership. We want to partner with parents and help them raise their kids to be the best people that they can be. And we need parents' help. So I love when I get to meet a parent and a family and I can invest in their lives. And when they pick up the phone and call me, there's a relationship there. And so it's really, really special. And so, Tom, thanks for mentioning that, because the family experiences are really a unique way to introduce the camp experience. And I found many parents come to a family camp or to a father-son or to a mother-daughter who never went to camp. Right. And when you're a camp person, you kind of speak camp language. I've had many staff and campers say that the best conversations they've had in a job interview have been connecting with the person interviewing them, saying, oh, you went to camp? I went to camp, right? So camp people immediately can connect on that common ground. But there are some parents who didn't go to camp and they think, well, I turned out great and I didn't go to camp. Why do I have to do this for my kid? And then they come to camp. Then they go to father-son or mother-daughter or family camp and they say, man, I want to keep coming back because I learned a lot about myself this weekend. And I grew a lot as a person, having to show my child that I'm not perfect. And I'm kind of afraid to climb up to the top of that, climbing wall. And, the muscles don't quite work like they used to or whatever. And having that humility in front of your child and letting them know it's okay to be afraid, but we don't stop there. We keep going and we push and we try and we give our best. So it's a beautiful experience for parents to come to camp and to share that with their children. And we love that we can do that. And there are many camps that do.
Mom and dad's probably, I'm not sure, but the balance of who's had more fun at the end of the day.
Well,
absolutely.
I just would say that the experience of being able to unplug with your children and go and for a multi-day, multi-night family camp experience is something we all desperately need. We're all way plugged in. We're all and I think at family camp, at least the ones I've been to, there's opportunities for adults to have adult activity. There's opportunities for kids to have kid activity under the watchful eye of counselors and specialists. And so there's something for everybody, at their own level. And then everyone comes back together for a meal or family activities together. And so it's challenged by choice, for all of us. So that it is a super powerful experience. And I think also, from a multicultural perspective, a lot of parents are not yet accustomed to the idea of sending their child to camp. So this is a way to introduce that or to try camp really very well, as Melissa said so well. That was perfect.
Tom, what are some of the things parents should look for in a camp when it comes to the safety protocols, when it comes to the supervision? What are some of the questions they should ask when they make that call to a few different camps to consider, or they're looking on the websites?
Great. Yeah, I think number one, don't, So you're going to be looking over lots of websites, and don't miss the opportunity to call and speak to camp owners and directors like Melissa. You should unabashedly ask them lots of questions like, are you accredited by the American Camp Association? If not, why? You want to understand how they hire their staff. Who will be looking after my children? What are their qualifications? What is their background? What is their experience? How many staff will be looking at, will be in my child's bunk? Or how does that work at your camp? What activities do you offer? Does everyone do every activity, or can they select? Are there any limitations on the activities my child can do? Also, I think it's important to discuss with camp directors today, especially. This pandemic has been difficult for our kids. And so having a conversation about how your child is doing and what your expectations are as a parent, what you believe they need, and to really help them understand. Lots of kids are coming to camp right now with tremendous anxiety, with they're out of shape, they are out of sorts, let's just say, or maybe they're struggling with emotional challenges or other issues. And so it's important to not just share their medical history with camp. It's important that their mental, emotional, social health be shared as well. And also, I think a lot of times parents want to know, last point would be, they want to know, well, once my child's at camp, when will I hear from you about how my child's doing as camp director? And so it's a part of being a successful camp director today is understanding how important it is to take care of the parents so that you can take care of the kids.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Very well said.
Yeah, I bet you have a few things to say on that one. You have a great ratio, I know, at Highlander, right?
Right.
Within the cabins.
Being an ACA accredited camp is a wonderful thing. I would echo what Tom said, because it's a checks and balances. It's accountability as a camp director to make sure, ask the questions on an annual basis. Are we still doing the right thing? Are we still doing the best thing for these children? Whether it is, through programming and the activities, through the training and licensing of our staff, and certainly those supervision ratios. So there are some questions to ask that Tom talked about, like, does my child get to pick their activities, or you assign the activities? We operate out of a cabin unit, and so that's not a very common way for camps to operate, although it has been a popular way through the pandemic for, keeping cabins together and campers together. But we have done that since 1957, and that is really about building that community and that closeness, and providing a place for our campers to feel like they belong, not having to prove themselves. They're already a member of cabin 17, and that's the best cabin on camp, of course, and they're thrilled to be a part of it, and they have built-in friends, but they travel around as a group to do those activities together. And that's very different than a camp where you go and your counselor goes off for the day and your cabin goes off for the day, and you're kind of navigating and doing your own thing of what you want to do. So some kids are like really, really avid horseback riders, or really, really into mountain biking, and they want to mountain bike every day. And I have to say to parents, your child's not going to mountain bike every day at Highlander, but what they will do is things that maybe they're not so comfortable doing, and they're going to have to push themselves outside their comfort zone and try something new, and maybe discover something that they actually didn't know that they loved. And at Highlander, we focus on, it's not about what you're doing, it's about who you're doing it with. It's about the community and the fellowship that you have with those friendships that you're making, and the positive role models of those counselors who travel around with you to those activities every day. So I think really understanding the program is really important for figuring out what's the best fit for my child and how many people are there. So I know for us, we have those 2 counselors in the cabin and 10 campers, and they go to an activity, and there's 1 or 2 staff members there or 5 at our ropes course with those campers. So that supervision ratio is something that we love, that our campers are always surrounded by, people that are making sure that they're safe and taken care of. And so I love that we have a very large staff and they continue to pour into our campers' lives. And so I think those staffing questions are really, really important. Where do these staff come from? And I love that at Highlander, many of our staff, we call them homegrown. they were campers and then CITs, and then they love it so much they want to come back. And that helps build a positive culture, that our staff come back from having been given the experience and been given the blessing of camp, and they want to share that with someone else. They want to be that role model or mentor for a kid that they had in their life. And I think that's just kind of the full circle picture of what makes camp so great, is that it kind of just keeps going and going, because once you buy into it and you get the camp bug, you never go back.
It never leaves you. It never leaves
you. It never leaves you, right?
I agree. That's right. It's a family. It becomes a family. But so how do you work with your counselors to deal with some of the, hard conversations that, Tom was mentioning? This day and age, we're really seeing in some of our children, the questions, bullying, whatnot, whether it's a day camp or a sleepaway camp. You've got to work with those counselors to, those questions are going to come, those issues are going to happen in a cabin, and you work with them.
Absolutely.
Go
Tom,
ahead.
go ahead.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I would just say that it's so important. I think what Melissa was really describing was the culture of her camp, the staff culture and the camper culture and the culture as a whole. And that's another really good question, is could you describe for me the culture of your camp? What are the philosophies of your camp that you really stand for as a camp director? And how does that show up in your camp staff? And then how do they lead the campers to embrace that? In this day and age, as you said, Paige, it is so important that kids feel both emotionally and physically safe at camp. Once they feel emotionally and physically safe at camp, they'll try new things. They'll take positive risks. They'll make mistakes willingly and laugh their way through it. And yes, as Melissa mentioned, they'll do hard things. One of the things that I, just talking as a dad for the moment, I have a 14-year-old who does really hard things at camp. Like a 9-day canoe trip, or this summer he's going to backpack the last 65 miles of the Appalachian Trail and end up on Mount Katahdin in Maine. So I think it's important there could be all kinds of challenges out there, some that are easy and some that are hard depending on your child. It's important for them to have an experience where they can be challenged, as Melissa was describing. But that's all about the culture. And so if a child feels like they're accepted, like they belong, like they're contributing, and that they have an opportunity to make a difference at the camp community, then they will be in. They will contribute wholly. Homesickness will melt away, right? They'll be fully engaged. But if on the other hand it's not that strong, then it can be challenging. So I think that your child best as a parent. Understanding what kind of culture they'll thrive in is what you're looking for. And I think you can be really open and honest with camp directors as you talk to them about every child's different. And as Melissa said, not every camp is for every camper. And so you really have to discern which is which. The other point I wanted to quickly make, Paige, is that another really important reason why asking about accreditation is that camp is regulated at the state level, and states regulate camp very inconsistently across the country. Some regulate a little, not very much, and some regulate a lot. And so the only way a parent knows in all 50 states across our country whether a camp meets the foundational standards of the field of camp is whether they're accredited by the American Camp Association. So that's been going, we've been setting standards since 1935 and accrediting camps since 1948. So it's a time-tested, time-trusted process. And so I'm proud of the work we do around that. We also spend the whole year really helping camp directors train up on what they need to know the latest things that they need to know for this summer and summers going forward. So we're doing our best to build a strong field for every child. And frankly, I think also it's developmentally essential to work at camp, right? To be an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old working at camp and have an opportunity to learn how to lead, to learn how to teach. That those young adults have also been quite traumatized in this pandemic. So I think if you're looking for something for your young adult to do this summer, the best possible summer job they could ever want in this day and age is working a summer or 2 or 3 at camp.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, Melissa, did you have something to add there?
No, absolutely. I believe our staff grow. We always say they're just big kids, they also need the love and care and attention that year-round, leadership staff at camp are willing to give. And so that's what makes the family and the community and feel so special, and staff who are invested in the summer camp experience, not only for what they can give kids, but for what it gives them, and the healing and the time away and the disconnecting from the pressures of outside to just have fun and grow as a person is so incredibly valuable. So I just echo and thank Tom for that, just how important it is for college age kids to have a summer camp experience. And like I said before, it's a great connection and future roles. It prepares you in so many ways for any career that you will have. I have a former staff member who said in all of her med school interviews, the first thing people asked her was about being a camp counselor and how that helped prepare her to be a doctor. And she talked about time management, and she talked about discipline, how she would get up in the morning at 6 o'clock to study for the MCAT, because she came every summer, even after graduating college, before she started med school. She's like, I can't give that up. And that says a lot about prioritizing what matters and pouring into people, and how it taught her bedside manner and all these other things. And I love to be able to share that each year with counselors when they come for staff training. So I want to get back to your conversation about that mental health and how staff are prepared. Each camp, that is another great question to ask. How do you train your staff? What does staff training look like? So when you're looking into a summer camp, find out, do they do a 3-day orientation, a 7-day orientation? What sort of things are they training their staff on? What sort of protocols and policies do they have in place in order to maintain safety and supervision? And part of that training is that we do with our staff is on the mental health and the hard conversations that come up, because we want our staff to feel fully prepared for what is coming their way when they feel emotionally and physically safe, and they feel confident in knowing what we expect of them in the job that they do. They're very clear on the expectations. That's when they can thrive and really be their best selves. But when they feel unsure, and I don't know if I should be doing that, then it makes them apprehensive and they can't fully invest into the camp experience. So we put a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of time into preparing our counselors and our activity counselors to do the job that we expect them to do. And I always tell parents, the very hardest part of my job is hiring the staff. Once they come to camp, all the pieces come together in this beautiful masterpiece, this gorgeous experience. And when everyone's doing their job, it works like clockwork. But if I don't make the investment of the 9 months before in the hiring, in the training, in the preparation, in the planning, in the programming to put it all together, then the summer won't be successful. And so this 9 months, people always say, well, what do you do for 9 months? You just work for 3 months in the summer. You have the easiest job in the world. This is the hardest time, is that preparing making sure that our staff feel equipped to handle anything that comes their way. And so we seek professionals for advice and counsel on that. We always refer to the American Camping Association. There's incredible articles and resources and things to help us be preparing our staff for the job that we need them to do.
Tom, how do you check on these camps, and what does it mean to be accredited? If you could, in a nutshell, explain what that means.
Yeah, I would say that it's essentially a peer review process, much like a university or a school that's becoming accredited. The camp voluntarily decides it wants to work towards becoming accredited, and there's quite a number of standards that will apply to different camps depending on the kind of camp and the things that it does. Different standards apply, but essentially it's a peer review process, a review where camp directors are trained to come and provide a peer review experience for a camp like Camp Highlander, and it's a learning experience every single year. Those standards change from time to time. By being engaged in that process, they're having positive interactions with other camp professionals who really understand what matter. So that's kind of what it is. It's peer review process coupled with standards, and all of that is dynamic and fluid and changes from time to time.
Okay. So
it's challenging as a camp director. It's a lot. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. But I'm so grateful for it. It is, like I said, that accountability, and it is a voluntary thing. It's something that we want, and I want to be challenged. So
we're asking hard questions about, if this happened, how would you handle that, and how would you prepare for that possibility? Crisis management, risk management, medications management, all kinds of topics. COVID is, we talk a lot about communicable disease. When you're a camp director, over the last 150 years, there have been many communicable diseases, and here we are in COVID. Should we maybe talk about COVID?
Let's talk about COVID. Yeah, Melissa said an interesting way when we were talking a little bit yesterday pre-interview. She says, we're rebuilding the ship while you're actually in motion. I'm sure, Tom, you would agree.
We are indeed. And I think we know some things, though. It's important to note, families that are listening, that camps operated successfully in summer of 2020. Not many, maybe 18% of overnight camps operated that summer, and by 60% of day camps. But last summer, the vast majority of camps, day and overnight, operated across the union. And we've had research on both summers by the CDC and other researchers, and we know that the multi-layered approach to mitigating the transmission of the virus, which includes things like hand washing, things like masking, things like physical distancing between cohorts for contact tracing purposes, testing, it plays a part of that. All of those are non-pharmaceutical interventions, and those NPIs, or non-pharmaceutical interventions, worked both summers very successfully if you're consistent in employing them. And it depends on a lot of different considerations. Whether you're an overnight camp, you might be trying to create a bubble over your camp, right? And so, like this summer, I know that camps are looking to find new ways to give their staff time off at appropriate intervals, and still maintain that bubble, with the use of testing, no doubt, as well as other NPIs. And then there's vaccination. I get the question I hear most often from camp directors right now is, Tom, do you think we'll get to a place this summer where we can relax some of those NPIs? And I think it really depends on, one of the key factors is, well, we don't know exactly what mutant we're dealing with this summer. Sure. That's one point. But also, to a certain extent, what we've heard from the public health authorities is that those communities have the highest percentage of their campers and staff vaccinated up to date, so to speak. They might have more flexibility than those camps that are not, because it's really a combination of vaccination, testing, and these other multi-layered mitigation strategies that has helped to make camp successful. And so, and what's amazing about it really is that kids over these past 2 summers, we've watched them learn how to work together, doing all the things they're asked, wearing masks when required, washing their hands diligently, being a part of a group, and doing all these COVID rules that campers have learned. They've thrived in the midst of all of those requirements and had a blast. It takes a couple of days, sometimes a week for them to settle in. Once they do, they have the time of their life.
Yeah.
Yes,
Day to day, Melissa,
sure.
I'm sure for you on your end.
Yeah. But I just want to say there's a lot of variability still. So we can't say exactly what this summer will look like, but I feel very confident that camps will operate successfully this summer if they just pay attention to the things that are being asked of them by the public health experts and do that diligently and consistently.
Yes.
I know. Take a deep breath, Melissa.
We're all going with the flow.
Well, after operating in 2021 and having a successful summer, I feel confident going into 2022, feeling prepared for whatever may come, and knowing that with the guidelines from ACA and the CDC, we were able to operate successfully and to have a fantastic summer camp experience. Having campers walking away saying this was the best summer of my life. They didn't say, except for the fact that I had to wear a mask. They just said it was the best summer of my life. They were so grateful and so appreciative of the camp experience. They would have it with, bags on their heads. They just did not.
Yeah.
They were so happy to be at camp and to
my
be able
kids
to
wear a mask on the way to school. I said, you don't have to in the car, but they're so used to it. It's okay.
Right. So I think it's us as adults who've had to retrain, as camp directors and, passionate camp people to kind of retrain our brain to realize how capable and resilient our children are, and that they will be so grateful for the camp experience, no matter what that looks like. And as long as we're keeping them safe and doing all that we can with the NPIs and the, pre-camp training and communication and partnership with parents, it's a two-way street. And I feel incredibly grateful as a camp director that we had parents buy in to our protocol. We posted our protocol sometime last spring, and we're very clear about communicating our plans of a family bubble before camp and the testing before camp, and then the working out of the cabin unit and the cohort and then neighborhoods. And we had the whole thing laid out for them. And there were some families who felt like, oh, this is too restrictive, I don't want to send my child. And we said, well, this is how we're going to do it, and we promise it's going to be fun, but if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. And then parents who bought in and followed the protocol are the reason that we were successful and that we were able to run a healthy, positive summer camp. So, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for parents to know the protocol and what the camp is doing and to back it up and support it.
So important.
That is just critical. So I'm very grateful for parents in that partnership, because we want your child to be safe, but we need your help to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that it's choose your adventure this summer. If you, I think that to the extent that parents work with camps like you described, Melissa, and to the extent that the camp directors work with the public health authorities, we can do this. Even though we don't exactly know what the lay of the land will be this summer, we know that, by this summer, I fully expect we'll have a fully approved, FDA approved youth vaccine. If our goal is to try to get beyond disruption, to give them more consistency in their life, whether it's at camp this summer or school next fall, we need to face the reality. It looks like it's going to be an endemic situation, and so we just need to figure out how to work through it and beyond. And I feel I'm very proud of the way our campers and our staff across the nation have been so resilient at camp, and then taking that with them to school and helped teach their friends how we can all get through this together. We've had conversations with like the National Governors Association and the chiefs, the Council of Chief State School Officers call us and say, can you teach us? Can you help us understand what we can do that you're doing at camp to help kids cope when they go back to school in the fall? And so we're trying to do that. The answer is camp for everyone. I just want to quickly say, Paige, before we wrap up, this is the first time in the history of camp that the U.S. Department of Education has funding through the U.S. Congress for through a program called ESSER for expanded learning in summer and enrichment learning in summer that looks like camp. And in the playbook that the Department of Education put out, they're articulating camp-like programs. And this could be camp during the school year where camps and schools are working together, or it could be camp programs in the summer. We need more camp for more kids all year long.
On that
we need
note,
to campify our lives.
We do. I want to know, for those who think, wait, I can't afford camp for my child, whether it's day camp or overnight camp, especially some overnight camps. There are some ways, some scholarship opportunities. Can you talk to that, no matter what state they live in, how they can find some support on that end?
If you go to our website, find.acacamps.org, you can search for camps, see if they're accredited or not. You can also get in touch with those camps, and one of your first questions should be, this is very expensive. How can I afford this? Do you have a scholarship program? Do you have financial assistance? More than 93% of ACA accredited camps do. And that was pre-COVID, and now I know there's even more funding. In addition, that Department of Education, when I say they're providing funding, we're talking billions of dollars that are designed to help those families that have been most disproportionately affected by the pandemic economically. And so we're trying to create camp experiences for everyone. It's going to take years, but I believe in the future, and there are scholarships out there. You have to start early and ask often, but there is funding for. My last camp I directed, we were serving kids from all great economic diversity, from poverty line all the way up. And so don't miss the opportunity to offer your child camp this summer.
And how about, Tom, there's ways people can give if they'd like to help send a child or two to camp.
Oh, yes, thank you, Paige. Yes, you can. At the American Camp Association, we have a Send a Child to Camp fund where you can donate to send under-resourced children to camp. We also, many camps have scholarship funds. We work with them to set those up if they're a for-profit camp, for example, to do that. Some of those camps have foundations that they built or other kinds of programs like that. So there's lots of ways to give to support camp for everyone. And I recommend it. It's like, there's nothing like changing the life of a child through a summer experience. It's a gift that gives forever.
It sure does. It sure does, as we all know very well. How can people connect with each of you? Tom, we'll start with you and then head to Melissa and Camp Highlander.
So the American Camp Association, our website is acacamps.org. Reach out, and I'm reachable on that website, as is my whole team. You can find camps. You can find out, there are lists of questions on that website that you should ask camp directors. Lots of resources for parents.
Okay, how about you, Melissa?
You can find Camp Highlander at camphighlander.com, and we are also available on all social media platforms. You can follow us and learn more about camp life and see lots of happy campers enjoying a summer camp experience. You can also reach me by email at melissa@camphighlander.com.
Okay, nothing like those experiences,
so
the campfires, the songs, the works. That's right. Thank you both for joining me. Really appreciate it. I hope we can continue this conversation another time. And
it's a great pleasure, Paige. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paige.
I will put this entire, thank you. The podcast will be, of course, on today's page, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Also on my website, that's paigekornblue.com. Just head to the today's page section. You'll find it there. And also in the podcast link, that's Paige with an I, Kornblue with a K. And my Instagram's at Paige Kornblue. It's all there for you. So follow me there, take a moment, share a review. Also, I like to say, listen to all these podcasts until the summer and then pack your bags and head to camp and turn it off. No podcasts even then, also all summer long. Enjoy it, right? Thanks so much, everybody. And until next time, cheers.